Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is another teacher related video, and it is my what's in my teacher bag video, which I have to say, next to getting my schedule, the supplies part of teaching is probably my favorite thing, so I'm super excited about this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what bags I'm using, as well as like what supplies I have. So basically, what is the organization, what is the system that I'm using to keep all of my classes and all the different levels that I am teaching organized. So let's jump right in. So first up, I will talk a little bit about my bags. If you saw my video from last year, you'll know that I got a rolling document carrier, which was fine for a while, but I moved and I now live on the 5th floor, and it is a walk up, and it was just getting kind of ridiculous. Like, it was way too much. I was carrying way too much stuff. It was too heavy. So I sat down kind of at the end of last year, and I was really thinking, how could I reduce the amount of stuff that I'm carrying? So I am currently down to 2 bags. We'll see how this goes as the year progresses, but for the moment, I have 2 bags. So my first one is, and they are full right now, kind of full. This is my backpack. So I honestly can't remember if the backpack I showed you guys last year was my old one, but kind of near the beginning of last school year, I bought a new backpack because I needed one that was just bigger. So this one is, it's got like a little strap up here, and then it's just got a drawstring. I wanted something that would kind of be protected if it rained. And there is a document like partition, if you will, in the inside here. So you can see I've got a little document partition, and then I've got the front section. So this is just an EASTPAK, one that I found here in France that was just kind of simple, you know, in my colors, gray and black. So that is my backpack. And then I was using a 31 bag for the past 2 years actually, and I was using it at the beginning of this school year. However, I was just a pattern tester for the new All Well Weekender, and I have, for the past 2 days, and I think in the future, like from here on out, I have been using my Weekender as my teacher bag. Now this thing is a beast. Like, it is a huge bag, and I am so excited, which actually, let me show you kind of comparison from my old bag so you'll see how much bigger it is. So this is my old bag. It is currently empty, so you can kind of see it's sort of a squat, like it fits A4 stuff sideways. And this is my new bag. Like, I literally can barely even fit them in frame, so it is much bigger. But what I really like is that it is softer and it sits a little bit lower on my body. So as I'm walking through the halls, I feel like it's not just this big gigantic brick on the side of my body that takes out students. I can kind of like squish it against me a little more, which is great. So this is I actually made this up a couple days ago, and I've been using it for the last 2 days, as I mentioned. So it's got 2 long shoulder straps as well as 2 little hand straps, which, because I do pack my bags so full, I try really hard not to use the hand straps when it's completely full, because I don't think it's gonna hold up. Whereas with the shoulder straps, they've got more points of contact where I've like sewed them down, so I think they're gonna hold up a little better. So I've got those 2 straps. The outside has 2 really big pockets. So you'll see here, they're literally like 3/4 of the bag, and then I've got on the back as well. And I will go ahead, when I show you the stuff in my bag, I'll show you kind of where I keep things in my bags. And then on the inside, it's got a zip top, which I've zipped it closed, but normally I just leave it open. But you see here, I've got a little zip top there. And then when I made mine, I am left-handed, but I also carry my bag on my left side. I feel like that's kind of a common thing. And so a lot of times what I run into is that in order to have the bag open the way I want it to, I have to like wear it backwards, sort of. So I did it so that when I am wearing the bag like this, it is open when the zipper is in the back and it closes in the front, and then my inside pocket is against my body, so that it is a very like left-hander focused bag. And so I did make the fancy pocket, which you can see is just like this kind of internal little guy right there, and it's got a zip pouch and a just regular like slide-in pouch. So those are the 2 bags that I am using for this year. I am holding on to my old teacher bag. However, it's starting to get a little bit holey. Yeah. So I'm holding on to it because you never know when I'll need a big bag like this. It was very useful for 2 years. It's just that I now have this new one that I made myself, and so I would really like to use that. So those are my 2 bags. So one of the things that I really worked on this year was to get whole units done all at once so that I could take up my originals and go and make photocopies at school and leave the photocopies in my locker at school. So I actually don't have all of the things that I use kind of on a day-to-day basis, but this is the only stuff that I would realistically bring back and forth between work and home. So my locker at school is currently filled up with all of the photocopies that I have for all of my levels. So I have 7 classes and 5 levels, and I just keep those at school. I don't even bring them home. And then I also have folders. So I have a folder per level. So for example, I have 2 Psych-Chem classes, which is kind of the equivalent of 7th grade, and I have 1 folder for them. That way I don't have to, if I run out of copies in one class, I have all of the copies. They're doing the same unit at the same time, so I have all my copies just like right there ready to go. So those are still up in my locker at school. However, I do have all of the other things that I use on a day-to-day basis. So I think what I'm gonna go through and do first is, obviously I have my teacher bullet journal and my grade books. So, oops, I've got those right here. Those actually live in this bag. So sometimes I won't bring my grade book to school. I always have my attendance book. So my grade book is my big one. This is where I'm gonna write in any bonus points the kids have, all that kind of stuff. I currently don't really have anything going on, so sometimes I will leave this at home, but for the most part I do bring it with me just because you never know when stuff comes up. I also, obviously, have my attendance book every single class, and what I actually do is I do track attendance, but I also will track homework. And one of the things that I do is I've given to all of my classes, they have a FLIPGRID consent form that they're gonna do because they have some bonus homeworks that they can do throughout the year, and then some of my classes are going to do a final project using FLIPGRID. I also have started giving a syllabus this year, so I have a section at the bottom where the parents and the kids sign and they give it back to me. So I actually will track that just so I know who's given me back this information, meaning that they've read it, they've accepted, consented, etc. So I just do that kind of at the back of my attendance folder, or of my attendance grade book, if you will. And then I also usually keep 1 page for homework. So if there are any times during the year that I actually check homework, so they had exercises that they had to do at home, I can track it on here because that goes into one of their grades. The other thing I have, obviously, is my teacher bullet journal. Now, unfortunately, my elastic does not like to say it's like super loose. For whatever reason, this size, the B5, always has kind of a loose elastic, and so it comes off really easily, but oh well. So I do have my teacher bullet journal with me all the time. I have put in my schedule and my color code. I just basically tape them in to the front cover, and I just used a glue runner, so if ever it changes for whatever reason, it shouldn't, but the scheduling is really crazy this year, so I'm kind of waiting to see. I just did it kind of on the 4 corners, so I can pull that off and put a new one in if I need to. So you guys have seen the flip through. The only thing I really added is I did write in my index, but I didn't do it like every single month and every single week. I just did the sections because that's all I really need to know. But that means that most of my index is left for notes. So I can actually index my notes and find specific information in my teacher bullet journal, which I think is going to be more helpful than just like having this massive notes at the back of my book. So we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, let's see, I have crossed off August. You'll see here, and I have started crossing off some days. I have added things into my calendar, for example, all that kind of fun stuff. And I have obviously started using my weekly. So this was the first week of school, and it's actually currently the second week of school. You guys are going to see it this at the end of the weekend, so you guys can see here I've started filling in there. So teacher bullet journal is going well so far. We'll see how that goes. I honestly haven't used the notes section yet. I have random notes that I did at the beginning of the school year that are on scratch paper in the back of my teacher bullet journal here, but otherwise I haven't used that section yet. So that'll happen, but not quite yet. So that is my teacher bullet journal. So I guess while we're in this bag, let's go ahead and do this. So this is kind of my like general, all of the random stuff that I like to have when I'm at work. So let's start at the front. So I've got the 2 big pockets in the front, In the one over here, I just have my little mesh bag of binder clips, and I also have little post-it notes so that I can label packets of copies because I do all of my copies at once. And so if I've got like 7 different packets and I don't know which level it's for, that's not super useful. So I do have that. I don't think that's all that's in that particular pocket. Then on the other side, I keep Band-Aids for my heels, which they are getting a little bit destroyed, but oh well. I've got my projector remote in here. I have a packet of Kleenex. Although I have mostly switched over to actual handkerchiefs, I do keep a packet of Kleenex in here just in case, because you never know. Chapstick, obviously. This one is Burt's Bees Honey. I have my work keys that live in my work bag so that I never forget them. And I think that is actually, oh, nope, I have a little glasses cleaner. I really should have like a pouch for this, but I don't. But my glasses get, because they're so huge, they get smudgy really quickly, so I do keep a little glasses cleaner in here just in case. So that is the one pocket there. And then when I'm actually at work, I'll also have my house keys in here and my telephone as well, even though it'll be on silent and all that kind of stuff, but those go in that big pocket. On the back, I've got 2 more pockets. And in one of them, I just have little bags. So this is one of our local grocery stores has these. They're kind of like a nylon-y sort of bag. And then I have another little canvas bag that I just got somewhere. I don't even know what this one says. Honestly, I keep them in my bag just in case, but I don't usually use them. Just, I don't know, I like having them. Then the other thing is I keep an umbrella. So I only have one umbrella, so if I need it for my purse, I'll put it in my purse, but during the school week, a lot of times I just leave it in there just because you never know when it's gonna rain, and I hate getting caught in the rain and like getting drenched and having all of my books get drenched too. So those are my big pockets. Let's go ahead and do the internal pocket first because there's not a whole heck of a lot in there. So what do I have? Actually, I currently have my wallet. I had to stop by and run errands. A lot of times I don't even bring my wallet to work. I literally will just leave it at home if I don't need it. But if I need it, I put it inside that inner pocket so that it's pretty safe. I have a tiny little container with like hair wax, I want to say pat, and that's not it. Wax? Yeah, I guess it's wax. I don't even know. Yeah, total brain fart. So a little bit of hair wax. I don't use it very often, but you never know. Then so that was in the zipped part of the fancy pouch. And then in the front part of the fancy pouch, I have a tiny little half moon zip. This is also an all-well pattern that is going to be coming out at some point, where I keep my external charger and a cord. I don't use my phone very much at work, like pretty much never in classes. I once in a while will take a picture of the board if it's something that I don't have time to write down and I need the information. But every once in a while when I have downtime, I use my phone to do some work, or I hotspot my iPad or something like that. And so I like to have a little external charger just in case, especially on days when I'm at work from 8 a.m. until like 6 p.m. because, you know. So that is all I have in my little pouches inside. Whoops. So then the next bit is just a massive internal pocket, and I have tried to organize a little bit. So I currently have, this is piles of consent forms from all of my classes. I actually need to sit down and organize them so that I can then file these and I don't have to carry them around. I just haven't had time yet. The next thing in here is, oops, this was something I kept in my other teacher bag. I'm actually gonna set this bag on the floor. I think that's gonna be easier. So I had this in my other teacher bag, and it's really nice to keep things together, so I just threw it in this one as well. So I've got this little bag with pens, so markers actually. They're double-sided, so one side is a stamp, and when I check homework, I stamp the kids' homework, and I like to do different stamps. So I have a couple of actual stamps, which you'll see in a sec, but if I run out, I've used those before, then I'll use these markers as stamps as well. Let's see, I've got a little container. Oh, actually, this needs to come out. So I have staples, but this is actually for my brochure stapler, which is now my at-home stapler, so those stay at home. But I have a couple of little rubber bands. I also have, which this needs to go in here now, I have staples for my new work stapler because I realized the one I was using, it just wasn't quite hardy enough. That's not gonna close, just kidding. So it wasn't quite hardy enough for what I do for work. So I got one of these. It's one of those like super easy to use ones, but what I like is it's very light. because a lot of the ones that are this kind of heavy duty stapler, they also weigh like 5 pounds for no good reason. And I was like, I don't want that. So this is a nice light one that I use. I keep it in my bag for work. So if I ever have to use it, if colleagues need it, I have that and 1,000 staples. I also have a glue stick because you literally never know. I have sticky tack, also known as Patafix here in France, which I use for a bunch of different stuff. I have hand cream, because you know. I've got extra whiteboard markers. I always have extra because a lot of times I'll have the kids come up and write the answers on the board, and so this way I can have like 6 or 7 kids come up and they're not waiting for the same 3 markers. So I try to have a bunch of markers on hand. Oops, there we go. I'm running out of room on my table. These are stamps that I was talking about. So I have this one, it's a little smiley face. This actually came in a pack of 3. Unfortunately, it was a green smiley face, an orange straight face, and a red frowny face. And I really only do stamps as like a positive thing, so I never use the orange or the red. So they're in my teacher drawer, but I only bring the green one to work. I also have, I love this one. It is this in this little container. It's a little star with gold ink, and I actually have a refill of gold ink. So this one I can use forever. At some point, my green one, I'm gonna run out of ink and I can't actually refill it, I don't think. This one I actually can refill, which is great. So what else do I have in here? Oh, I've got some paper clips, a little thing with just some paper clips. This is, oh, here I am. I'm like over organized. I have another little glasses cleaner, which honestly, I'm going to take out the one that is in that front pocket and leave this one because it's in a little baggie. And I'll save that other one for somewhere else. You know, I can always use them. And I think that's actually it. Yes, so that is all that is in this little guy. Oops, kind of dropping stuff on the floor. Then the next thing I have is kind of a twofer. So only problem is the base is not very solid. So if there's not any other stuff in the bag, it all just kind of falls apart, which is nice when, you know, when it's full, it keeps its shape, but now I'm taking everything out, so it's kind of falling over. So the last thing I have are my pens. So I know, in France, teachers change classes, or at least in my school and in a lot of schools that I know of, it's the kids who have their own classroom and then the teachers change rooms. So one of the things I ran into my first year is I like to be organized, and I spread out when I have a desk. Like, the worst thing for me is to have a teeny tiny little teacher's desk that is full of stuff from teachers from other classes, like drives me crazy. But I also was running into the issue where I was using a pencil case and I was having a really hard time finding the pens that I needed right then. So my solution was to get a little metal pen cup. And what I do is I keep a set of whiteboard markers. So I usually have one of each color and sometimes a backup if I'm running low on ink in one of them. I always have a pencil and eraser. I always have a ballpoint pen of some persuasion. I always have a thin and a thick black marker, and I usually have some kind of a highlighter just in case. And then I also keep a red pen because I don't correct kids' papers in red, but in my teacher bullet journal, I will sometimes note like really important things in red, so I see them really clearly. But then the other pens that I have rotate based on the day. So these were the pens I needed for today. This was my class that I had yesterday. These were the 2 classes that I had today. So I just keep the pens for the color code for the class I'm gonna see that day in my cup. And then each day I then pull from my main set of pens to switch them out. So this year I'm using more of a fine point pen. So I've got either Stabilos or extra fine FLAIR pens. And I've got other pens in here that I have access to, but when I'm writing stuff down kind of on the daily, I use the finer pens. So I've got, oops, let's pull out my other fine pens somewhere in here. So these are my other 4 classes. As I mentioned, I have 7 classes. So, oops, I've got 6th grade, I've got 2 7th grade classes. And the way that I did it, and this is actually kind of confusing me at the beginning of the year, I'm a head teacher in one class in 7th grade. Last year, that class was this color. And so even though my number has changed, so last year I was 5e, this year I'm 5e. So I've just changed the number of the class, but I'm keeping the color of the class that I am the head teacher in the same, and then my other 5e class is this one. So that's kind of how I remember that. Then I've also got, so that's 7th grade or 5e, I've got 8th grade or quatrième, there we go. And then I have 3 levels in première, so which is 11th grade. So I have 2 regular English classes, so they're shades of purple. And then I've got an honors or a Euro section, if you know the French system, and that is gonna be orange. It's the only one that's like super out of place, but they were orange last year, so I was like, you know what, it's fine, we'll just keep them orange this year. So those are my basic color codes. I do have other color codes that I use for my calendar. So for example, I have 3 highlighters I use where I highlight our general calendar. So I have yellow is for general, and then I've got a color for middle school stuff and a color for high school stuff. I also have colors that I use. We have week A and week B. I always have, you know, it's green and violet, and one is always week A and one is always week B. It just kind of helps me remember that. But otherwise, I do have multiple size pens of my color code. I just don't necessarily use them all the time. So these I've actually kind of bundled together. They're mostly backups for if I run out of ink with my other ones. And then I also have the regular FLAIR pen. So for writing with a thicker line, I will sometimes use these. I've got my other little, my other highlighters, that's what those are called. So my MILDLINERS actually in there. And then I also have a pair of dedicated scissors for work. So I'm never stealing my scissors from home to use for work and vice versa. So what I've also got in here is I keep a permanent marker, whiteout, and an extra black FLAIR pen just in case. I also have a USB key, which I don't use as much anymore because I have moved predominantly to Google Docs. But every once in a while, there are certain like audio documents or videos that are a little bit too big for me to download, and so I like to have a backup of that on here. Also, if other teachers need to give me information, it's nice for me to have a USB drive that I can just give them and they can give me stuff and give it back. I also keep a couple of rubber bands and a little thing of washi tape, so if I ever need to hang something up or take something down, but it's not anything major. I used to have a roll of tape, but at the end of last year, I believe one of my students absconded with it, so I have not yet gotten a refill of that. But yeah, so that is all that is in my pen case. So the last thing that I have are my binders, so basically my organizational system, and this is something that has changed from last year. So I tried to kind of spread out the weight, so anything that is a binder or a bunch of papers or stuff, I try really hard to put into this backpack. So I'm gonna just take everything out. There we go, drop that on the floor. So I do have, before we get to the binders, I do have my clipboard. This is something I've been doing now for at least a year. I think I also started it probably part of the way through my first year, so it's probably been a year and a half. So what I have in here is I have scratch paper on this side because you never know when you need it, and then this side is for my seating charts, and I use these seating charts to track participation points in class. It also helps me learn the kids' names, assuming they actually stay in the seats where they're assigned, which in middle school they do. In high school, they tend to change around more, so it's a little bit harder for me to learn their names, but I do keep this on here, and then I usually will, every week or two, I will print out a new version of the seating chart and start fresh because I've run out of space to do check marks for their participation. So I do keep this with me at all times. So the last thing I have, and as I mentioned, I left all of my folders and like papers at work, but these are my binders, and this is how I actually organize my classes. So I'm gonna flip these around so they're all facing the right way. So I have 4 binders. I actually have 5, but I have not yet needed one, and one of them is mostly going to live at home. So these are my 4 main binders. I have my class list binder, which is kind of general information for me and about my classes. I have my middle school binder, my high school binder, and my head teacher binder. And the reason that I did it this way is last year I had 1 binder per class, but this year I actually have 2 classes. I have 2 7th grade classes and 2 11th grade classes. And so I'm basically gonna be doing the same work, just maybe on slightly different days. And so I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't really wanna have a separate binder because, you know, on Fridays, for example, I have 7 hours. I see 6 of my classes in one day. That's a lot of binders. Like, that is super heavy. So what I decided to do was organize it like this. So basically, starting with kind of the more general, I have this binder, which is pretty full, and I've actually got some random papers I need to file, so I'm just gonna pull those out because they're just gonna fall if I don't. I've probably got some more. So I have, I've got some little page flags. I also have my schedule, color-coded, obviously. I have a contact list as well as all of the classes we teach for everyone in the English team. Now this is something, and I'm not going to show a lot of these because they have personal information, but just to kind of give you an idea. So this is something, this is my 3rd year doing this, and I find it really helpful. It was something I wanted to do for me, but I now send it out to everyone in the English team at my school so that we all have this information. So we all have different levels, and a lot of us were not physically in school at the same time. So this list allows us to have phone numbers and emails so we can get in contact if we need to. We also can see who else has the same level, or for example, I have honors classes where I've got small groups of kids from 2 different English classes, for example. So if I need to see like, hey, what are you doing in your regular English class? I know who has those 2 classes in regular English. So this just kind of helps us stay organized in a system where we don't really have a time that we all are going to be getting together and chatting and all of that kind of stuff. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years, and it's something that I just kind of do. We have our main school calendar over here. We get it at the beginning or during the summer, and it's good for the whole year. So I just check off days, I highlight, I turn the page, like it gets messy. I have, we have others like planned exams that they have. So we have a calendar for that. So I keep that in here. I've got a map of the school because some classes I don't know very well. And then it's basically split up, and you guys will see, I'm gonna just flip back here. You'll see I've got little tabs for my levels. So each level is split out with a tab, and then I sometimes have smaller tabs because sometimes in one level I have 2 or 3 classes. So basically for each class I have a class list, and as much as possible I have the just typed up class list that has what electives they have and all of that. And then I have another class list that has their picture, so that kind of helps me learn their names. So I have both of those whenever possible for all of my classes. And then there's some other random information that we have, so like procedural stuff and that kind of thing. I've got a section in the back that's just kind of diverse random information. So that is for this binder, and so this I pretty much have with me all the time, especially at the beginning of the year when I'm learning kids' names. But when I have meetings and that kind of stuff, it's just good because then I have all the kids' information as well as my information in the school calendar and all that. Oops. The next thing I have is for my head teacher, the class I'm head teacher for. So this is basically information that I'm going to have that's specific to them. So for example, I have these, which is a list of all of the kids' teachers that I gave to parents for back to school night. So they say like, okay, who does our child have in science? They have this person. So it's just kind of a way to do that. Then I have the full class list as well as the kids' schedule. So what they actually have on a day-to-day basis. That way I can see like what's going on and that kind of stuff. And then I've also got they've got like a buddy system. So if one kid's absent, the other kid will get their homework. So I've got a list for that. I've got a list of procedural stuff for head teacher duties, things for the first day back in class. We also have every other week we have an hour of them in like kind of homeroom, if you will. So I also have a PowerPoint for what we're gonna do during those days. So that actually lives in here and not in the 7th grade folder, because I also have this class as my English class. So it's basically just information that pertains to stuff I have to do as their head teacher, but I keep it kind of separate because I don't need this information all the time. So this a lot of times will stay up at school unless I need it at home for some reason, but it moves around a little bit less than other stuff. Then the last 2 binders, and I'll just kind of go through one because they're basically identical, are my middle school and my high school binder. So in high school, I basically have 3 different classes in 11th grade. So I've got 2 regular English classes and 1 honors class, which is the European section. So 2 extra hours of English a week. So that just all lives in here. And then I've also got 4 levels, well, 3 levels and 4 classes in middle school. So I've got 6th grade honors, 8th grade honors, and 2 7th grade classes. So I know it's kind of crazy, but lots of levels, so things can get kind of complicated. So for each class, I've got a little tab, so I can flip easily to it. The first page for all of them, all of my kids have the opportunity to do a trimesterly bonus video on FLIPGRID. So I actually have already planned them out, and let's be honest, I didn't like try to complicate my life. They have the exact same prompts no matter what year they are. It's just I expect a different amount of detail and like length of video, length of talking for each level. So I have this information for all of them. So I actually even have the pages that are going to be, oops, these. I have their homework sheets, so when it's time to give them this information, I have a little page that I'll make photocopies of, cut in half, and give it to them as their information for their homework. Then I've also got this particular class has a general lesson plan. It was a colleague of mine who did this, so this was her lesson plan, but I tend to use PowerPoint, so I actually print out my PowerPoints so that if ever the computers don't work, which actually has happened in middle school this week and last week too, I still have my information so I can write up the agenda on the board, I can write up the homework. If it's not something that's a video, then we can still do class even if I don't have access to Google Drive, which is great. So I have the entire first unit for this class, and then one more, and then I've got all of their first day back documents. So this includes their syllabus, FLIPGRID consent form, the first FLIPGRID homework, I think that's it. Then the next one is all of the original documents of photocopies I needed to make for the first unit. And then I think they had, oh, this one, so for this one, they actually had a little section of this was a packet of documents I wanted to keep together, and then this is all of the original documents. So basically it's the same for all of them. So in 5th grade, for example, I have the FLIPGRID, I've got my PowerPoints, and then at the end of the second class, because I have 2 levels of this class, that's where I'm gonna have the original documents. This is stuff that I use in class that I need to have for both of my classes, originals, all that kind of fun stuff. So I have that for all of my levels. It doesn't matter if it is middle school or high school. That's kind of the setup that I use. A lot of times as I finish the PowerPoint slides, I'll check them off so I kind of know where we stop at any given day, because sometimes things shuffle a little bit, so I sometimes have to update things and all that kind of stuff. But this way, I basically only have 2 lesson plan binders, one for middle school and one for high school that I need to have, and each one currently has the entire first unit for all of my classes. So this is why I'm trying to do my unit at one time so that I can go ahead and print out all the documents I need to then photocopy, print out the PowerPoint so I have that ready to go, and so I can just kind of live in here, and then when I'm done with this unit, I'll move out and switch into the next one kind of thing. And then the only other thing I have are the folders with the actual photocopies. So that was the way that I was able to kind of reduce the amount of stuff I'm carrying. So I basically went from having 7 binders and 7 folders to 4 binders and 5 folders. So it was a lot less. I also have a ton of papers in my locker at work. I do have a couple of other folders that I have not yet needed, so they're currently living at home, and I'll go ahead and show you guys those really quick too. So the other folder that might come to work with me sometimes, but for the moment is just gonna live at home, is this folder. It is my participation folder. So as I mentioned, I use a seating chart to track participation points, and then for each trimester, I fill out a grid that is like this, where I track in their participation and then their behavior grade, which, not going into that, I've explained these kind of off and on a little bit before, but basically it's a way of tracking their investment and their responsibility level in class. And so I just have set up where I've printed out the first one. Oops. I have 3 page protectors per level. So for the first one, I'm going to put all of the seating charts I used for the first trimester behind this. So then at the end of the school year, I can just bring this if I, have meetings and stuff like that. I just kind of have this all together at a glance. Whereas last year I had each participation tracker in the back of the binder for that class. And when I had to go through and update everything, it was such a pain in the butt because I had to pull out every single one of my binders and go through all of them, whereas now everything's all in one binder. So I think that's going to be a little bit more manageable. The other one I have is a to grade folder. So this is when I start having, final projects come in, any tests, that kind of stuff. If I don't get to them immediately and hand them back, they'll go in this folder. So I know I have stuff to work on to grade. I just haven't really gotten anything to grade yet. So this has been living at home for right now. The last thing I have are 2 binders. So one is for middle school, one is for high school. And this is basically where, as I'm preparing other units, I'm gonna put this information in here. So one of my goals for this summer was to absolutely get the first units finished for all of my levels, but I wanted to try and get as many of the second units done as I could, and I've kind of done that. So I have some where I haven't completely done the unit, but we're gonna read a book, so I have printed off the resources that come with the book. For that, I've also got, this is the second unit for one of my classes. This is another book we're gonna read. So I've started kind of in another book as well. So three of my levels we're gonna read little adapted books. So I have started collecting that information. And as I start getting to these units, you know, the first step is gonna be get all of my second units done, get them in here. And then when I'm done with the first unit, I'll take all this information, you know, go make photocopies, put it into my binder, and then I'll work on getting the third units filled in. So that hopefully I'm always about a unit ahead from what I need to be working on with the students. And this is just a way to kind of keep things organized so they're not just spread all over my apartment on shelves. Like, this is this school year, upcoming units, and we're good to go. So that is what is in my teacher bags. It's a lot of stuff, I know. I'm still working on finding a good equilibrium of having exactly what I need for class and also not carrying too much stuff because it's going to start hurting my back. I'm definitely on the way. I am carrying less, like a significant amount less than I was last year, which is awesome. But I feel like there might be a way for me to reduce it even more. I think part of the problem is that I still need to have sort of a toehold in the paper side of things because my school doesn't always have, you know, there's days where the projectors aren't working. So I could log into Google Drive, but I can't use it to project stuff for the kids. There's days when the computer itself isn't working. So I need to still have a paper version of my lessons just in case. And until that no longer is necessary, and I don't know when or if that's going to happen, I still need to have some way of tracking things on paper. But I think I've made some headway in getting things to a more manageable amount. It was getting kind of ridiculous last year, so I really focused on that this summer, and I think I've come up with a system that's going to hopefully work a little bit better and be a little bit less unwieldy than it was last year. So that is what I've got for you guys today. If you guys have any comments or questions, let me know down in the comment section. I will try to link as much as I can in the description box in terms of specific products that I like to use, because I know in the video it might not have been very easy to see what I was actually talking about. I probably won't be able to get absolutely everything just because I use a lot of stuff, but I'll try to do kind of the highlights, if you will. If you have a question on something that I didn't actually link down below and you're curious what it is or where I got it, let me know. Just know that a lot of the stuff that I've gotten here locally in France, and some of it may or may not be readily available online or overseas. So with that, I will see you guys in my next video. I hope you all have a great week, and yeah, until next time, bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.